All right, ladies and gentlemen of SPE, let's get this show on the road. First off, our housekeeping things. A lot of you checked in at the door. If you haven't, take a moment, scan this QR code real quick. Give you about 10 seconds for that. Oh, it's scanning. Beautiful. So just a few quick things. Number one, get plugged in with us in social media. So I don't know if you knew this, but this event we're about to show you, it's also being streamed on several of our social media platforms. So let's say you had to house sit your dog, or you got sick and couldn't make it here today. You could still watch this awesome event if you were linked up on social media. So take a moment, make sure you're following us on all platforms. Something else, if you want to get involved with SPE, join a committee. There's over 20 of them. You're bound to love one of them. It's going to help our organization a lot. It's going to help your resume a lot. So totally join a committee. Scan that code if you get a shot. Also, guys, if you haven't renewed your membership by now, I mean, it's April. You should probably hurry up and do that. It takes 5 seconds, real easy. And once you renew, then you'll get all the great benefits you get for being a member. You're a student, so it's free. Lock and load, renew when you get a shot. Coming up, this is tomorrow, actually. We have one of our most exciting R&D series of the entire year. That's with Aramco. So if you can take a chunk out of your schedule, I'd totally come and join. This is going to be really, really fun. And also, same day, tomorrow we're going to have a mentorship Easter egg hunt. So have some fun with your friends, celebrate Easter, then roll into the mentorship social. That's going to be a blast as well. Come on in. And so today, in a little bit, we're going to introduce Mr. Tyler Shoultz and Mr. Willie Nelson. They're both with Ovintiv. Fun fact, 2 days from now, Ovintiv's going to be back here again for Lunch and Learn. So if you want to reconnect with the company you're going to learn about today, come on in, get a free lunch. Great lunch and learn ahead of us. Also, we have an iftar potluck coming up on Saturday. These potlucks are phenomenal. Such great food. A lot of it I've never tried before. Totally worth it. And a week from tomorrow, Pioneer's coming in for their office hours. Essentially, if you're looking for a shot to get one-on-one interaction with an industry professional, really learn about what it takes to boost your resume, get in the industry, this is the time to do it. And there's only like 5 spots left. So if you want to get in fast because it's almost filled. SPE Ball, our big formal prom-like event of the year. This is coming up. Tickets are on sale. Find yourself a date, find yourself a ticket, go to the ball. And also, this is really exciting. We're entering a new era of excellence with our Petro Bowl team. Ashwarya, contact her because we're starting to get to a shot where Texas A&M is about to win championships again. If you want to be a part of that, if you want to help us be #1 in the world, as we should be in Petro Bowl, scan that code, get locked and loaded. Again, renew your membership. And we're going to start to dive into the event today. So before I introduce these guys, there is one pretty cool thing I'm going to need you to all do. Everybody pull out your phone. Pull out your phone and go into your browser and just type in buzzin.live. Type that right into your URL code, buzzin.live. You're going to be prompted to join a game, join game, and enter that code. So I'll give you a few minutes. You'll see your name appear on the screen if you did it correctly.
All right.
Awesome. And as you guys are joining, this is the way this is going to work. You are the live studio audience of a podcast, but don't feel like the spotlight is only on these guys. We want this to be super, super interactive. So if you have a question, if they say something that interests you, hit your buzzer. Yes, that's the sound. When you hit your buzzer, that means you have buzzed in.
Get out of hand.
All right. I dig it.
So once this starts, only buzz when you have a question. When you hit the buzzer, these guys will address your name. They'll say, oh, Yasser, Joe. We're going to ask you a question, and then they're going to address you. All right.
Really stop pressing the buzzer.
Stop. That's us. All right. It works.
So basically, use that. Your phone is now a buzzer. When you buzz in, they're going to say, oh, whoever buzzed, give us a question, then you're going to stand up, ask a question, and it's going to be really lively, super fun. Be ready for the most engaging experience of your life. And with that, let's turn it over to our guest today. Let's give him a hand.
Well, I don't know if it's the most engaging thing. Is it? Word life. It is. I dig it. All right. Well, first off, I want to thank everyone for coming. My name's JP Warren. I'm the founder of Connection Crew. And if you haven't heard of it, shocker, it's only 7 months old, so I'm not surprised about that. Yeah, pretty much we're not prepared. And that's kind of the whole point of this. The whole point of this is kind of, we're going to provide a little background about ourselves. We're going to provide kind of our outlooks for the industry, the oil and gas industry. We might dive in a couple tangents, kind of some trends that we're seeing, all that stuff. We're going to talk about how to survive the booms and the busts of the industry, because shocker, it does happen in our industry. There are booms and busts, and there are ways to, there is, I swear. I heard about it on Twitter. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. In reality, I mean, kind of what Nathan said, we want to open it up to y'all because in reality, this is for y'all. It's not for us to kind of come up here and talk about ourselves. It's to kind of hear from y'all, hear y'all's questions, and kind of what feedback and advice, guidance, counsel, or anything that we can do about that. So I guess I'm going to begin by first off introducing myself again. JP Warren. I want to thank Nathan for inviting me when he first reached out to me and asked for me to come and speak to all you bright minds in the room. I thought, what is me, the guy with a marketing background, marketing degree from Texas A&M, going to talk about it to y'all for 2 hours. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. There's not enough time for me to talk about myself for 2 hours. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up some, I call them frustomers, some friends that are customers, up to the table. We got some majority Aggies, and we have one person from LSU. There we go. But no. The point is this. The point is this, guys. All right. He's coming back Thursday, so he's gonna remember faces. But the point is this. It's not your Aggie network that matters. It's your entire network that matters. So that's kind of the business that I'm in. But a little background. Went to Texas A&M. Grew up in Connecticut. Went to Texas A&M. Graduated class of 02. Graduated 03. I was in the Corps Cadets. My man, what outfit? Okay. All right. F2. I'm undercover. I'm on a mission right now. So class of 02, so that means I was on bonfire the night it fell, like the last one. Yes, that's how old I am. All right, but I started off. I went to France, got a master's, came back, couldn't find a job for about 6-7 months. Ended up going to a staffing company and got a job at Noble Drilling. And I started off there in HR, and then I went to HSE, which I knew nothing about. I just said, sure, I'll do it. It's a job. Why not? So I did that. That gave me the opportunity to kind of travel all over the globe and see some pretty cool spots and kind of meet some great people. From that, after the Macondo incident, the Deepwater Horizon incident, we got pulled into shore. I went to operations, started working offshore. After Macondo happened, got pulled in onshore, went to Saudi Arabia for a year with another company, Archer. And after a year, moved back to Houston, where they put me in sales in 2011 or 12, and I was in sales ever since. So that's kind of my background until about 7-8 months ago. Started my own little company, and it's basically based on relationships and connections in your networks. That's kind of that's my background. Before I get into why I'm in the industry, why I enjoy the industry, and how important the industry is, I'm going to hand it over to this guy I picked up at a Bitcoin conference a week and a half ago to come up and give us a chat. So everyone, this is Ross Hayes.
Howdy. Always wanted to do that. So I'm Ross Hayes, class of 2010. I graduated mechanical engineer. I've worked for 2 operators so far in my career. They're both medium-sized companies. Currently at Paloma Resources in the Anadarko Basin. We're running 1 to 2 rigs at mostly. Before that, I was at Alta Mesa Resources. If you keep up with news, that was, during the crash, it fell with it. But we were up in the Mid-Con area running 12 rigs, roughly, at its peak. And then before that, I worked inland barge work in South Louisiana, like Weeks Island, Cote Blanche Island, and on the salt domes. And so that work was really challenging. I got to do workovers, 24-hour workovers, and run drilling rigs, and do way more than I probably should have at that young of age, but learned a lot during that time there. I have a wife, 3 kids, and a dog. I live in Katy, so my life is busy.
I have a wife and a daughter too, and 2 cats. So before you continue, so all right, well, thanks, Ross. And then we're gonna pass it over to here. We got we used his name to get half y'all in the room. This is the Willie Nelson, the Willie Nelson. All right, not the ripoff guy. So go ahead.
Yeah, the one and only. Sorry, I'm not exciting these guys. I'm not a cat mom or dad over here. No
Not
pets
yet.
currently. Not yet. That's right. So first off, howdy.
Howdy.
All right, we're getting a little better. I think that practice around it. Name's Willie Nelson, the one and only, class of 18, graduated petroleum engineering. So I was in that seat not too long ago. Some fond memories from this room, but also some absolutely terrible memories from this room. I can thank these 2 guys up here for some of those memories. But no, so right now I currently work for Ovintiv. I'm a facilities engineer with them. I've been with the company coming up on 3 years. So kind of talking, talk more about it later, but talking about booms and busts. My freshman year was 2014 into 2015. I started working for Ovintiv in 2019. So if you think about some historical events, there's a lot has happened since I was a freshman in college.
So it's your fault.
It's my fault, essentially. Came over here from California, wanted to go to Texas A&M, and it all kind of went down the drain after that. Got to intern with a couple different companies. Last internship was with Newfield. After I worked for them and Canada came in, acquired Newfield. So we ended up changing our name to Ovintiv. If you haven't heard of us before, that's kind of our heritage there. Been working for them for 3 years, about to come out of the rotation program. First year as a completions engineer, second year as a asset development engineer, and now as facilities. So happy to be here, happy to see all y'all. And if you guys don't want to ask these guys any questions about recent graduate type stuff or internship type stuff, we can definitely talk about it afterwards as well.
I'm not going to say it. So, hi, everybody.
Let's give him a howdy. Let's give him a howdy. There
Go
we
Tigers,
go.
baby. No, so I'm Tyler Shoultz. I'm a drilling engineer for Ovintiv, LSU class of 2014, petroleum engineering. Yeah. So I enjoyed the boom time for about 6 months. I was at the time working for Helmerich and Payne, a drilling contractor, the biggest in the U.S. And I was roughnecking in West Texas when we started dropping, I think, 30, 40 rigs a week, it seemed like. But I'm from South Louisiana. Like I said, LSU 2014 is the only school I applied to. So I never had any hard feelings or anything for A&M because I think y'all were still Big 12 at the time. So I hated Alabama at the time. So it wasn't a big deal. Anyway, I know I'm north of 10. That's why, but only about a couple miles. But yeah, no accent, even though I'm in the middle of swamp country over there. But LSU class 14, I went to H&P for a couple years after college, and then I hired on in 2016 with Newfield Exploration, and I've been there for 6 years now through the merger with Encana, now Ovintiv. I work our Rockies asset, North Dakota and Utah, and there's actually some familiar faces in here from recruiting season. I'm also on the recruiting team for Ovintiv, and so I've come to A&M a couple times now, so it's not all that strange for me. I met a lot of great people here, so that's why I like coming back. And when JP offered the opportunity to come do this, he's a great friend of mine. I like supporting people in the industry, especially people I consider friends. It's a small group, so make sure you support them whenever you can. So I want to come out here, so I appreciate y'all for having me.
My name is Keith Ogdee, class of 2004, graduated 2005. So how about a good howdy? Howdy. All right, there we go. In 17 short years, it feels like, worked everything from facilities production, pipeline infrastructure with Conoco, Marathon, before I moved over to the dark side private equity world, and have been drilling, completing, and supporting development operations for a couple of private equity companies over the last 8-9 years. So seen a little bit of both sides, seen the public side, seen the private side, the good and bad of both, which they have plenty. But overall, it's been a great experience.
And the whole point of this, I mean, so I guess who am I? Why am I? I have a podcast. I'm sure 70% of the people in this day and age, and it's done a good job kind of reaching out and kind of connecting people and bringing people together. So I guess that's maybe where you noticed me. And also last year, I had Dean Murphy, and a couple other people from SPE on the podcast. So that's kind of why I collected this group of people here who all have different background, different experiences, different tenure in the industry, and all that. So, and also, yeah, the SPE registering for your SPE. First off, the fact that it's free, Chevron takes care of that, unbelievable. I just played in a SPE golf tournament yesterday in Houston. So SPE is still around after you graduate, after you move on. It's still an organization that you kind of want to be a part of and be active in and meet people. And that's kind of the whole point of this. But again, we're just going to kind of get into this a little bit. We're going to kind of talk about kind of our own different perceptions, outlooks, and insights on kind of probably about 3 or 4 kind of topics. And some of the topics, again, why are we in the industry? Why are we in this industry? And I'm sure that y'all probably understand that this is not a public favorable industry currently for the majority of, at least you seem to see that a lot out there. So why are we in it? And another thing, how to survive the booms and busts. And I guess we can talk about, current trends and all that stuff. I think you had a great point about the fact that you had both the private equity and also the super majors too. So again, we're probably going to kind of go over this briefly. I know that if you got food, you got to stay here for the whole time. So this can be as long as y'all want or short as you want. But again, this is for y'all. And we encourage you to buzz in .live premium whenever y'all want. So I guess I'll start off kind of why I'm in this industry. Well, first off, I joined this industry in, again, 2005. And I just joined because it was a job. I didn't know anything about the oil and gas industry. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a drilling rig was. I didn't know anything. So I joined it, and at first I was in it just because it was a job. And then I got in this position, HSC, where it allowed me to kind of travel the world. Brazil, China, KL, Amsterdam, Brazil, everywhere pretty much. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so I'm meeting all these people. I'm getting to see some cool stuff. And then I moved, went to Saudi, which again was a vastly different experience than something I've ever had in my life. But again, it was one of the most rewarding experiences. Whenever you have an opportunity, obviously I'm not telling anyone what to do here, but from my experience and from what I've seen is that you don't want to pass on opportunities. It might not be part of your plan that you envision your 5 years is going to look like, but don't pass on opportunities, even if it doesn't align with your plan. I remember my 5 year in the industry, I was pulling pipe back offshore in the derrick, and here I am with a marketing degree and a master's thinking, what the hell am I doing? So it's one of those things, but without doing that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I started traveling the world, seeing all that stuff, went to Saudi, came back, got into sales, and that's kind of when things kind of started like clicking. First was a job, got to see some cool stuff, and yeah, all that fun stuff. But in reality, this industry, it kind of evolved kind of in 2 main reasons why I'm in this industry right now. First and foremost, obviously we provide reliable, transportable, affordable energy throughout the world, raising energy poverty. Secure, yes. Thank you. So that's obviously the greater good aspect, if you will. But the main reason I'm in it, and this is kind of something that's developed throughout the years, kind of what Tyler spoke about, it's the people. The people in this industry, unfortunately, we get stereotypes in this industry. You have, the person on 35th floor, white suit, American flag pin, white hair, Republican, diehard, all that stuff. But also then you have the redneck, roughneck stereotype. But we're much more than that. We're engineers. We're fathers, husbands, wives, sisters, whatever we are. Lawyers, geologists. I mean, there's the people in this industry is what makes it so great and so important. And that's kind of one of the things that's the main reason why I'm in this industry and why I love it and why I don't see me going anywhere. So, Ross,
My turn.
why are you in this industry? This fun industry.
So I came out working in 2011. I'm 3rd generation oil field. My dad grew up in it. My dad's dad grew up in it. He worked in Chevron. My dad worked all around the country pretty much. I grew up around it my entire life, so it was just something I lived in Houston. I mechanical engineering degree. I mean, your opportunities there are to go work for some kind of either manufacturing or robotics. that didn't really interest me as much as running a drilling rig or workover rig. So I applied for some jobs in that sector and got it. And anyway, so now moving forward to where we're at today, I mean, it's a unique situation to be in, to be able to run and manage a drilling operation or workover operation because of the amount of not only how fast things can change, but how you have to be prepared for different objectives and different targets. There's so many factors that revolve around that rig operation that you don't get to see in any other really industry out there. Some would compare it to, like, flying a space shuttle, really, in that sense. You're dealing with high-tech tools, high dollar, your day rates are very high. I mean, everything's just, it moves fast. Everything moves very fast now. And then you have a team of people that everything still revolves around people out there. And it's so that sense of teamwork, and you really, it's hard to, if you've never done it before, it's hard to explain. And it's also hard for people from the outside looking in to understand really what you do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, we do a lot of engineering stuff. We look at, what type of pipe we need to use, and mud systems and bit design and BHAs. But really, at the end of the day, if you don't have a good functioning team out there, it's hard to get the performance that you want out of that group. So that's what drives me. I absolutely love doing the drilling side of it and workover side of it. I mean, it's working the rigs and dealing with the people. It's just something that I really enjoy. And then the budgets, I came out of school and I'm given a multi-million-dollar budget I'm just a kid out of school that's trying to learn how to drill a well, like it's just something that you don't get, and that's why I said, when I was young coming out, I probably was given too much responsibility. But the manager I had he was an old Louisiana guy, and he put a lot of faith in me, and he was there to help me out and mentor me a lot. So I learned so much during that time. I felt like my head was spinning in circles, but it really was a good experience. And even today, you have these budgets, and I get to pick and select basically everything that I do on that job, because it all comes back to how do we perform. So, and it's all very real time in that sense too. So you get to see the work you put in right away. It's very gratifying. So that's why I like it, why I still like it.
And speaking of that, kind of something that you touched on real briefly is the value of mentorship in our industry. There's so much knowledge and just skill sets out there. It's extremely important to try to find a mentor, and that's not someone that you kind of shadow or kind of do a ride along with like in cops. It is someone that you kind of want to just ping ideas off of, whether it's personal, professional, or something like that. So mentorship is huge.
Yeah, I would add on to that. When you come in the industry, you're going to be young. The ego will build. Like, if you just set that aside, there is so much knowledge out there. I mean, everyone that I've worked with and learned from, they're gone. I mean, and they had so much knowledge that it's gone now, it evaporates. All you have is reports to read off of now from those guys, and you try to figure out what were they thinking at that time, and why do they do it this way or that way. And our reporting systems are a lot better than they used to be. Our data acquisition technology, all that stuff has improved drastically from what it used to be. But still, those guys, they've set sail. They're gone. I mean, I learned so much from them. So it's use your mentors, ask questions, don't be afraid, don't be shy. Even the guys I learned the most from guys on the rig. They're there firsthand. Your fishing tool hands, people that are around it all the time. I mean, those are really good knowledge sources that, it's not just people in the office or engineering managers or, the higher up guys. People that are actually doing the work know so much. Just ask questions. Stay curious.
It's like the more people you talk to, the more you realize that you really don't know as much as you thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
if you do think you know it all, I suggest you probably find something else to do.
It'll change. I think the ability to get into roles that have a level of responsibility at a young age for engineers in oil and gas specifically is something you won't find in many other industries. I did 2 years downstream petrochemical refinery. Spent 6 months designing a couple of pumps and some piping and installed it, and that was the project. I mean, do more than that in 2 days in upstream from a engineering diversity standpoint, working with different people. It's so much more fast paced, for better and for worse, but certainly more engaging at an early age in your career than a lot of other that are far more focused, slow paced, long-term type, small projects. So that was one of the things that really early on drew me to it over the first one.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So what kind of got me into the petroleum industry was, so my grandpa was an OIM. He started oil field in '69 as a roughneck for Global Marine, then became Global Santa Fe, and then Transocean after that. And I grew up with a single mother, and then so he was always kind of my father figure growing up. And he'd be gone for 6 months at a time, 6 months on, 6 months off, or 3 months on, 3 months off, depending on where he was working, usually in Africa somewhere. And I always thought it was so cool because he'd bring back different money from different countries that he came from. And so I always looked up to him for that stuff. And so I was like, well, I want to do what my grandpa does. I want to work on drilling rigs and do that kind of stuff. And he always told me, he had like this real gruff accent. He's like, boy, you don't want to work on no rigs. He's like, you want to be one of them engineers, pencil pushers in the office. And he goes, go get you one of them petroleum engineering degrees. And I was like, all right, well, that's what I want to do. I was like, I want to be like you in the best way I can. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go a petroleum engineering degree. And I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I mean, like I said, that's when I had the idea. I wanted to be like him on that end, but I never done it. And I never gone off the rigs, met the guys out there. And then he actually ended up getting me an internship with H&P that I told you about earlier. And I worked on a Flex 5 in Tyler, Texas in the summer of 2012. And the guys I met on that rig none of them had a high school education. They were all from Weir, Mississippi. I could barely understand half of them, but they were the most tight-knit group of people I'd ever met. And I worked with them for 8 weeks, and I was like, all right, I'm hooked. This is kind of
503 Mafia, what is it?
Oh, it was what was it? 418?
418
No,
Mafia?
318.
Mafia?
And so H&P 318. And so like I said, you end up bonding with those guys, and you make a lot of relationships in a quick amount of time. And then I was like, all right, I'm addicted. I'm in. I'm sold. And so that point kind of refocused me for college. Like, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to be in drilling. So I ended up staying with H&P, and then I ended up loving it more and more. And people you meet throughout the years, the people that I met at H&P going through, and now some of them work for us now. You see them around. They work on my rigs because I run an H&P rig now, so you kind of see those guys coming back. And like I said, just kind of brings back the people. So my grandpa got me into it, and then people I met out there, people I meet recruiting. I'm kind of tend to be a little bit outgoing and like to meet people because I mean it's such a small industry, and so meeting other people, they're like, hey, I want to go for petroleum. That means they have something that ties them to petroleum, because a lot of people can go like very generalized engineering and then like okay, and then kind of gravitate towards something. But if you're going petroleum, a lot of times you have a pretty strong reason as to go to that, and so that's why I like to recruit. I'm on the industry advisory committee for LSU Petroleum Department. I like to meet other people that are passionate about it and bring them into our company. So when I'm serious, when I say I love my job and I love this industry, and I want to meet the same like-minded people. That's why I like to come talk to those people and then see what might have them interested and kind of bounce those ideas off each other.
All right, so I'm a little atypical. I'm going to take to left field here. So how many of y'all are out-of-staters? All right, not a bad showing. So I'm, as I said before, originally from Southern California. Knew I wanted to get into the energy industry. A lot of people ask me, well, why did you move from Palm Springs, California to College Station, Texas? And I'll give you the very honest answer is I want to do petroleum. So I did a Google and said top petroleum departments in USA. And I looked at the top 5. LSU may or may not have been on the top 5. but I looked at the top 5. And I applied to all of them. Ended up visiting Texas A&M, fell in love with the campus, said, I want to do petroleum engineering here. I'm sure you guys still do it, but as freshmen, right, you're a general engineer and then you have to apply into your major. Is that right? So I was the first year that they enacted that, which was kind of a fun guinea pig process. But once I got in, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Well, I didn't really even know what petroleum engineering was or what we did. And so the two things that really taught me that I was in the right industry were actually one, SPE. So I commend all of you for being here tonight. I remember one of the officers talking with me as a freshman and said, hey, we have a meeting on Tuesday night. And of course I asked, is there going to be food? They said yes. And I said, oh, I'll be there. Went ahead, showed up, and hearing from, and it's kind of, a nostalgic moment, sitting here with my peers and really, my superiors in the industry, having, only been in it for a couple of years, hearing from these guys and learning what the industry is all about really got me hooked. And then the second was my first internship. So I worked offshore Gulf of Mexico for my first internship. And from my first hitch on, I knew that this was the path for me. So I'd really highly encourage you guys to get involved, get hands-on. I think that's really the only way you figure out that that this is the path for you.
So from your first hitch, how did you, what you said, this is for me. I know now this is for me. What was it? What about it?
So to kind of just play off some of the things the other guy said is it's so hands-on, right? You're getting a petroleum engineering degree. You're going to learn your calculations. You're going to learn your formulas. You're going to learn your modeling. But at the same time, there's so many things in the industry that go above and beyond, right? And kind of the fast-paced industry and the hands-on of dealing with a problem, reacting very quick to that problem, applying everything you guys have learned here in school and on the job to solve that problem, and then to implement that problem in a very short period of time, I think is something very unique to the industry.
Anything else? Well, before we, continue to kind of, the next thing I wrote down is kind of how to survive the booms and busts that we're seeing. Does anyone have any questions or comments or any curiosities you want to ask right now in the middle of the conversation? Did you?
I got greasy fingers.
Okay. All right.
I was just sooner or later I wanted to ask y'all what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
The oil price.
I'm not an engineer, but I'll just say for me, it was, I really wish I got out of my first,
Study.
Well, I was marketing. You don't have to worry about me. I'm good. I'm good. As long as I ain't BS, I'm good. For me, it was actually meeting people. It was getting involved in organizations like SPE. It was getting out there and meeting people. I mean, just because you haven't graduated doesn't mean you can't attend an event in Houston, network with people there. I saw, again, the past president, Dean Murphy, before he even graduated. I was running into that guy probably about, I think, 4 or 5 times at different events in Houston. And he wasn't even out of school yet. So I would say that for me, it was meeting people and expanding your network. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's in our industry, it's a small industry, and it's kind of, when pandemics happen, when busts do happen and companies kind of do get wrapped up and all that stuff, it is who you know at the end of the day. Not all of it, but majority of it.
To kind of expand on that, I'm kind of the same boat as I wish I would have kind of talked to people more when I was in college. My first couple of years, I worked all through college, and I worked at Walmart so I can pay for going out and getting drinks, getting lunch, all that stuff. And so I didn't really do a lot of on-campus events, go to SPE. I was like, I'll get an internship or whatever, senior year, the last 2 years, what everybody does, because I was going through college in 09, 10, 11, one of those really good years, and so everybody was getting a job, and so I could just take advantage of that. And if I can go back, that'd be one of the things, to get more involved. And I know not everybody has like the outgoing personalities of Mr. Warren over here. And so it's kind of hard to break out of your comfort zone sometimes. You just go say hey to people. And then for me, I was always intimidated being in college because you think you need to know a lot about the petroleum industry or something like that, doing petroleum. And I personally don't expect you to know a lot about it, but the fact that you're just coming up asking questions, and if you're just curious, we're never going to like talk down to anybody or like think you're dumb for asking a question that might be pretty easy, because we do this stuff every day. So I just encourage, just to break out of that comfort zone. I know it's uncomfortable for everybody, even for the most outgoing people, to just come up and ask questions. And so if it's just something as little as introducing yourself, just coming to say, hey, because I recruit, for instance, and so just coming to say, hey, and I remember your face. I'm pretty good with faces. I'm usually terrible with names, but just that gets you in the door a long way of going farther in the industry. And like I said, or just making contacts, because I meet a ton of people that I recruit that we don't necessarily hire, but they go to other companies. I give them recommendations for other companies or life and just advice and stuff like that. So like I said, I would encourage you to try to break out of your comfort zone on those things and just at least ask a question, introduce yourself, say, hey, I'm from here. I heard you were around that area. What do you think about football or whatever? I could talk about anything from Bitcoin to football to baseball, whatever.
And
or I could even talk about this Texas Aggie picture I saw yesterday of, for some reason, recruits holding fish. Anybody like see this going on? I don't know.
They don't look at tire droppings.
Yeah, maybe it was a Photoshop, and I'm just really bad at it now.
From
But
the
it was
outside-
recruits like holding big fish and like little sharks.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, buddy, you can't explain. No, but talking what Tyler's talking about, that is true. Get out of your comfort zone, meet people, because this industry is, people love talking to people. People love helping each other out. They really, really do. So yeah, absolutely. Just go say, hey, like whatever. Like, say whatever. I mean, we do enjoy talking to people.
That's right.
Ask more questions. You're going to feel like, okay, I should know more than I do. But I guarantee you, every guy that you work around that's got gray hair, every person that's been in the industry for 15 years, they know you don't know what you're doing, right? Day one on a job, it doesn't matter what your GPA was because you've never done that job before. So focus more on finding the people that could be good resources and ask the questions. It may be a dumb question. You may feel like it's a dumb question, but if you didn't ask it then, it's going to be worse to not know it in 6 months. So that would be my big thing, is just walk in open-minded, bring your skills, bring your interest, bring your energy, bring your enthusiasm, and ask the right questions. And that's going to leave an impact on somebody versus somebody that didn't ask any questions and just went through the motions. 3 years into their career, they didn't learn as much because they were trying to hide what they didn't know. So that would be one. I wish I had thought more that way my first few years than trying to acclimate and impress.
Yeah. I'd have to say mine's a little cliche in the sense that nothing's ever going to work out the way you planned it, right? I remember as freshman, sophomore, I had these high, lofty plans. I was going to go, work for Chevron or work for, whoever it was. And none of that happened, right? Oil went down, $30. People just weren't hiring, right? And I've heard it. You mentioned it early, right? Just seize every opportunity right in front of you. And I started getting that advice a lot when I just first started on full time. And it's the best advice I think I've ever gotten, right? Planning is helpful. It's useful. It's kind of like modeling. It's helpful. It's useful. But it's. I've got a story about me being a B student later. It's gonna make them both blush, but no, nothing you ever plan is gonna come to fruition 100%, right? Planning is helpful, but it's not going to. And so I just recommend seize every single opportunity. If there's a job out there that really scares you because you know nothing about it, and it gets offered to you and it's a really great opportunity, take it. Take that opportunity to maybe get outside your shell, ask the questions, and really broaden your horizon and learn something you didn't already know.
Great point. Good question.
Anyone else have anything? Oh, Edward.
So speaking of asking questions, could you all speak on some of the major trends in the industry and what we can be expecting as petroleum leader students into the workforce in 2 to 3 years?
Okay.
That's a great question. I mean, so kind of.
So did everyone hear him? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't repeat the question.
You got to repeat the question for the camera.
Yeah. So, like I said, great question. It's kind of asking what we're expecting to see out of the oil industry in the next 2 to 3 years and what they can expect as students coming out. I think it's a great opportunity for the classes going around right now, especially on the petroleum side. Because when I graduated, the freshman class at LSU was, say, 360, 370 kids. And I know, A&M at the same time was probably close to 400 or 500 around that same time. No, not a little off.
We had enrollment management. We never got over 600 or 700 until.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So we were sitting at, I think, at best.
Yes, you were part of the problem.
And so we just had a ton of people coming in, and so then you kind of saturated the market on people and talent. And so there's a lot of talent in that group of 700 to 900, whichever school it is. But now, I mean, the entire petroleum department at LSU, I think, is 88 students. And then I imagine, I think it's probably a little over 100 here.
We're
350. Okay, so I mean, still not nearly as many. So half of what they had before, right? And so
We've always been the
I like this guy. What's your name, sir? Yeah. You seem like a driller. Were you a drilling teacher? Are you a drilling teacher? Anyway, like I said, I think there's a great opportunity for you guys starting off and to really take advantage if you're staying through it and getting a job or at least getting an opportunity to do so.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of kind of what to expect and trends and all that stuff, I mean, you're seeing a huge surge of technology right now in the oil and gas industry. You're seeing a lot of data, whatever you want to call it. You're seeing a lot of like data analytics. I mean, you're kind of seeing kind of the Silicon Valley side of the industry more now than ever. So what else? I mean, I guess as a new graduate, this might be a question for you, as you just came out. What are you kind of trends or to prep for?
So yeah, trends. You know, I never thought we'd be plus $100 barrel oil ever again. Kind of having had the experience I did. I think trend wise, you know, during downturns, and I even said this, you know, when I was a student, downturns kind of, you know, thin the herd. We talking a lot about numbers. Dr. Blaskin's good with numbers. Kind of thins the herd, and a lot of people view that as a really bad thing. I view that as a really good thing, right? You know, the cream comes to the top, and you have the best of the best that are your classmates now, right? Our industry is never not going to need bright new minds, right? To come in to backfill some of the older generations that are either retiring or moving on or you know, doing other things. So I would just really encourage you guys, you know, if you're scared about, you know, job availability or anything like that, I personally wouldn't be kind of from the outside looking in. I definitely had those nights where I thought, okay, I'm never getting a full-time job. I'm never getting an internship, but it all kind of worked out. So kind of just a word of encouragement there.
Yeah, I mean, the trends, 8 billion people in the world are going to need energy, and there's not fewer people in the world anytime soon. So a lot of the political aspects, in my opinion, are what cause this industry to go up and go down. The demand's not going away. Renewables are not going to overtake fossil fuels anytime soon. I mean, it's just, it's not there. The technology, the reliability, the transportation aspect, storage, we're a long way from that. So, you know, I everything you see on TV, in my mind, is equivalent to if you turn on the TV and they showed a B-52 from World War II flying people to their destination and said, "This is dangerous. We shouldn't do this anymore." I mean, it's just the spin of that's not the reality. You know, you look at reality TV shows of a drilling rig. They don't want to put the technical, clean, polished one that's doing well on there. They want to put the one on there with the, you know, the guys that are the most, like the worst examples of the stereotypes. So you get a lot of that, and it's easy to get lost in those perceptions. But the reality is, this industry is steering and moving leaps and bounds ahead into being the most competitive, the most economical provider of sources of energy on top of all the other products around the world. So, I mean, North Face can do what they want, but they're still, as far as I know, making all their products out of synthetic materials that you can't do with sunlight. So, the reality is the base load's not going anywhere.
And even, so I went to a lunch last week, and Shell was talking about their net zero 2050, whatever. And even by their numbers, by 2050, the world will need 47% more energy, and half of that pie will be oil and gas. So there is a lot of clickbait on, you know, the end of oil and oil and gas and all that stuff, but it's still going to be necessary. It's so ingrained in our lives, and it's such a great source of energy. It's not going anywhere, regardless of what you read out there or here.
Yeah, just to add a couple more things, since we did touch on all the PR stuff. ESG is a big deal, even in the smaller companies. I mean, we're small, medium sized, and our ESG reporting has gone through the roof compared to what it used to be when I joined the industry. So that's one thing. Technology, I think during bus cycles, technology improves drastically through all the small companies to the large companies. Going to Ovintiv, you probably had a huge database, awesome infrastructure with IT and stuff, and you come to a small operator, yeah, right, good luck. I mean,
You are the database.
so that has improved drastically over the last 10 years to where we actually have products now out there that we can use and implement that aren't strenuous on our internal personnel. As far as the rig side, I can speak to that. You're seeing a lot more automation, a lot more technology going downhole from RSS tools to high temp, high pressure tools. All that stuff's drastically improving, especially as the Haynesville continues to pick up. I would continue to see. I think I would see the gas market continue to do very, very well over the next, for the life of me. That is, there's no doubt in my mind that gas is the future.
LNG has revolutionized
Yeah.
natural gas, right? There's no way around that.
You look at it, you need it for fertilizers, you need it for just all types of things. That's more high level view there. But just stuff like that. People are still trying to remove personnel from the rig side. Some companies have done that. When you look at your Exxons of the world, just equipment they use on the rig, that really hasn't hit a lot of medium-sized, or even the majority of their rig contractors. It has not hit. It's only a few of their spec rigs that they're using. That is something that continues to get pushed down, though, to the well side, is removing people, and just hasn't quite gotten to that point yet. We still find value. I still personally, from my operation, I find value in having guys out there that know, some of the best of what they do, that can troubleshoot tools and whatnot that are downhole. MWD tools is a big one, right? I'd rather have someone on location that knows what they're doing and can troubleshoot that stuff versus in an office somewhere in Houston, talking to my guy on the phone on how to fix something. It still doesn't jive quite yet. So that's a little bit of what I've seen.
Good question.
I have a follow-up question on that. So future trends, a few of you guys have talked about crypto. What do you think is crypto's future word in oil and gas? The future word?
Well,
You want me to leave that on?
why not?
Yeah, I'm fine on that.
Okay. I would say obviously crypto's come to light over the last during this pandemic deal, and even before that, it's been growing in popularity. What you're seeing now is wellhead gas that had no pipeline to go to now has a home. You're seeing a lot of small companies and large companies starting to enter that space. I have no idea what that future looks like. That's just opportunity there for them to deliver gas to a market rather than flare it. And it adds another element. And what you're seeing a lot of these operators do, if they're not self-funding the whole crypto, because it is high capex intensive as well as drilling the well, you're seeing a lot of partnerships form based on that. So it just allows companies some versatility that once didn't have it because they had no pipeline access, especially from the Bakken area where you had these great oil producing wells and a lot of natural gas to come along with it, but no pipeline. And then you had restrictions on flaring being implemented. So what do? We want to produce the oil, at least those operators do. So they hook up mining machines. It's a win-win situation in that case. So
There's a huge crossover right now between, I guess, people, oil and gas people kind of leave and get into Bitcoin.
huge.
But I mean, there's just a huge overlap right now that we're seeing.
I mean, did Exxon just announce that they were getting into crypto with that same?
They were going through that through something like that.
Crusoe is basically,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the main guys. A lot of these bigger companies right now are looking at it from a relationship, partnership aspect. If it continues to, we have a future of crypto. I'm not going to speculate on crypto from a monetary standpoint, but if we see that continue forward and they like their returns, I could see them putting dollars to work in that realm as well. It's very CapEx intensive. You're not only competing with local, you're competing with the globe at that point. What's the lowest, who can provide the cheapest power? Or if it's a byproduct they're trying to get rid of, if they can't deliver to market, how do we, that solves that solution there too.
Doesn't that be ESG too?
Mhm.
McLaren? Maybe.
It's still,
Jury's still out?
Yes, it does help with ESG.
There you go. It's all ESG.
It's improvement.
Anyone else got any Bitcoin comments? Okay.
I mean,
Did you have Blake?
Actually, something going back to your previous point talking about automation on rigs. In terms of that and moving forward with, I want to get your opinion on if you ever think we ever reach the point where a drilling rig will have absolutely zero personnel on it, and at that point, if it's actually viable in terms of speed when drilling wells versus how long it would take for a machine to go through the process.
Great question.
machines will get faster, no doubt. They will overtake what personnel are doing right now with regard to drilling parameters, directional drillers and their parameters. So absolutely no doubt that technology will get there. We'll never have a rig without people on it. There's too much equipment. Equipment needs to be maintained. So the way I look at that is the roles will still be there. They'll just change a little bit. You won't need the driller sitting there at a joystick or on a brake handle controlling weight on bit anymore. It's all going to be automated at some point. We're not there. But there's a lot of equipment that requires oversight, maintenance, ongoing 24/7. So, you know, you talk about the automated rigs and it kind of gets spun as if it's just going to be a robot controlled operation out there. But there's too many parts and pieces to that to narrow people out of that world. Just, I don't see that happening.
I mean, plus people still have to put it together and take it down. And the faster you drill, the faster you have to do that, and the more you have to do that. So somebody has to be there to rig it up, rig it down.
Yeah, and then when things break, I think you're going to see more technicians, people that are qualified to fix things. Like electricians, a lot more electricians, technicians, things of that nature. But yeah, if they can, I mean, if the rig companies can remove the personnel from hazardous areas, I think they're going to continue to push that agenda, and operator will too, as long as they can keep the performance in line with what they want to achieve. So yeah, I don't see why not.
And if you can take the same 5 or 6 person crew and have all of them solely focused on maintaining the equipment versus what they're having to do now, move pipe, make connections, control the stick, you take the same labor force and just drive more and more efficiencies by letting technology and computer take over the things that are being done manually now. So,
And I think booms do not give any type of improvements. Boom cycles are, I think, difficult on personnel, difficult on operators, difficult. Everyone's trying to get whatever they can during those times, and there's no focus on optimization at that point. It's just we got to get it down, we got to get it done. Yeah, it's I think they're bad from that standpoint. It's during the bust cycles you start to see people, or those medium, give any any time between, like we saw in 2010 through 2015, 16, like where we had some time period there where people were trying to improve and performance was getting better and better. I mean, we're kind of drilling our way out of jobs anyways. So.
Yeah. Sorry, last 4 years.
Our drilling performance has just gone. It's gotten better and better every single year. It's actually amazing to see. So.
You shared something in the group text not that long ago that we're never going to get back to like 1,200 rigs because back then we drilled 47 million feet of lateral. Now with 200 rigs we've done. No, I'm sorry, we did like 17 million. Now we're doing 47 million or something like that with 200 rigs.
Yeah.
What was that stat?
I couldn't tell you the exact numbers, but if you just look at the unconventional well profile now, I mean, every horizontal well we're able to knock out in a matter of 6 days to 15 days, and equate that to 10, 20 years ago, how many vertical wells it took to achieve that same production profile.
Right.
You're never going to need that many rigs. It won't be there.
So speaking of boom and busts and all that stuff, I think that kind of brings us to our second point. Then we've been talking for about an hour now, and then I think after kind of we have this discussion, unless one of y'all have something else to bring up, I think we really kind of want to open it up to y'all and kind of answer some questions. But in the past 2 years, we saw oil prices go from something we never thought would happen, would be negative $37, until we're sitting at today. What is it today? We got to
$100.
Yeah. Okay. So within 2 years, I mean, think about that. Negative 37 to over $100. All right, for a commodity. So that's you may think that oil feels blown and going right now at $100, but through external circumstances, whether it's capital, whether it's labor, whatever it is, it's going to be elevated prices, I feel, for a while. So let's talk about the booms and busts, because I'm sure y'all have been in school since 2020, and now I guess you're coming on the tail end of getting out. So you're kind of looking at a boom right now on paper. So I guess from what I've seen, how to survive the busts of our industry, it's a couple things. First off, it's luck. That's number one. You never know, waking up the next morning and checking your computer, checking the headlines, seeing if your company was bought, sold, or acquired. So that's kind of a nerve-wracking thing right there. But one way to a couple things to do. Number one, kind of talking about this network. I saw during the downturn, a lot of people get let go. A lot of people lose their jobs, and they've had those jobs for 15 years, 10 years, 7, whatever it is. And I saw some pretty shady, slimy people get jobs the next day. Engineers get jobs the next day because of who they knew. And I saw some really, really good people, good friends in this industry, great engineers who couldn't find jobs because they didn't know anybody. So I think a good way to survive is, again, you don't try to network for your job tomorrow. You do that today and yesterday. So that's the first thing. First off, just get out of your shell, start meeting people, and just kind of expand your network, whether it's operators and honestly the service side too. I was talking to this one petroleum engineer in Fort Worth. He's like, "Oh, I'm meeting with this company and this company. Oh, I'm talking to these people over here." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's great. You're talking to all operators. Who on the service side have you talked to?" He's like, "I don't want to go to service." And I said, "Man, that's kind of the service side. They got the finger on the pulse on who's hiring who. So don't just limit your networks to kind of the companies you want to be at. Kind of expand that." And the second thing that I would kind of give counsel on is kind of what you spoke to, is even if something feels uncomfortable, if something feels like it's not part of your plan, if it's going to the service side, the other side, working at a rig contract or something like that, be flexible. Whether that's going to the field and sit in the rigs, or whether that's moving to the service side in a whatever role that you want. So be flexible and be adaptable, because if you stay rigid in kind of your plans, kind of your career path and career trajectory, it's not going to work out long term, in my opinion. So that's kind of my 3 takeaways. How do you survive the busts, guys?
Get dirty early. It'll never be easier than the first day you graduate to raise your hand for that rotation that maybe nobody wants. But if you get out there, the closer you are to the operation, no matter what it is, you're going to take away more in a year than you'll get in 5 years of being in the office and just emailing and talking. And everybody that's done that will be able to tell that within 5 minutes of a conversation. So right out, what I would try to do is get into not just a little short rotation program, but a long-term field type rotation, whatever your interest may be. If it's reservoirs, if you can get to a field office where they're running the production operations out of there, get tied into some of that. If you want to get in operations, it's even easier. But go to the place nobody wants to live and work a rotation, or live there for a year. You're not going to want to be away from your friends. But later in life, you can't go back and redo that. It'll never get easier. So it's a big one. That's another one I wish I had more perspective on right out of school. So.
Yes, kind of expanding on what these guys are talking about. It was always kind of when I went to school, it was everybody wants to get the operator job, right? Nobody wants to go take the Schlumberger or the Halliburton job that they might have more offers for or more opportunities for. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, of course we all want the operator job at first glance, but it's one of those things where if you don't have a job or You're just sorry.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where
Wrap
it's,
it up.
don't be afraid to go work for a contractor or a service company. That's what I did out of college. Some of the best engineers I know got hands-on experience, because sometimes an operator, if you start right out of college, you don't get that exposure that you do on the service side or the contractor side. Service side, contractor side, they're sending you to the rigs to go do, if it's MWD work, cementing work, drilling work, whatever, versus operator side, they're like, all right, you might get a 2 or 3 month rotation here, 2 or 3 month rotation there, but you really need to appreciate what those guys do. And maybe you have a passion for it that you don't realize. And so it's one of those things where I encourage you, especially sophomores, freshmen, or even juniors that haven't had an internship, especially even right now, but hey, we're in a boom cycle. And so every service company I know is trying to hire people like left and right. Say, hey, can I go work on your rig or do something this summer? At least have those conversation points for when you come back in the fall during recruiting season. If you do want that operator job, at least you can come up to us and be like, hey, I did MWD for Halliburton in West Texas last year. And you're like, oh man, how was that? And we kind of talk about it. And that's just us getting to know each other, and that'll get you farther than just about anything versus I had a 4.0 here, but I didn't do anything every summer. So that's one thing I would highly encourage everybody to do. If you don't have anything, call LinkedIn, ask one of us. We all know every service company's contractors. We can at least pass you over contacts if you're looking for something.
And that's also talking about that. You're talking about, engineers that go to the field, and you can sniff it out if they went to the field or not. There's also something to say about engineers or, patrolman engineers that have actually sat on both sides of the desk, the operator side and also the service side. That's pretty beneficial because you kind of understand what's driving them, what's filling their plate and all that stuff. So you can also, it kind of makes you a more well-rounded engineer that can kind of sniff out the BS a little quicker too.
Yeah, so I like JP's words that I said out of his mouth more than I did my own. So I'm going to piggyback off of what he said earlier. So graduated 2018, as Dr. B aptly pointed out. I was a B student, so I took a half victory lap. Yeah, exactly. There we go. If anybody's thinking about taking a half victory lap, I would highly recommend. Extra football season is great. Whether we're posing with fish or not fish, I mean, hopefully Jimbo kicks it into gear this next year. But having done that last internship with Newfield, and then in October, waking up to 10 phone calls and 20 text messages saying that the company I interned for and had a full-time offer for was going through a merger, was a pretty grim day. Pretty easy for a company just to cut an employee that's not even there yet, right? And so kind of being flexible, they said, okay, you graduate December 18, we want to still hire you on in the summer of 2019. So I had 6 months kind of downtime. I chose to travel and did some personal things, but I was flexible in that, right? So I came in. So the intern the new hire program for Ovintiv, and I'm sure you'll learn more about it on Thursday when you come to lunch and learn, meet some other great Ovintiv employees. It's a 3-year rotational program, right? Which in school, might seem a little long. I'm on the tail end of it, and it's truly been great. So the structured intern program, new hire program, still think I'm an intern sometimes. New hire program is a year in the field to start off, right? You do production facilities work, get dirty quick, right? Then the second year, you come back into an office, you do 6 months drilling, 6 months completions, some field trips, some office work, kind of get to see both worlds. The third year is in a reservoir type role. So either asset development, reservoir characterization, something along those lines. My rotational program, I came in and immediately went into completions and said, okay, this is great. I'm going to learn something. Got to the field, learned some great things from some great guys. I was able to get my hands dirty. Well, then kind of COVID hit and we laid down all our factories, right? That was a scary moment for me. And I thought, okay, surely this time I'm getting fired, right? It still didn't happen, even though I was however Dr. B did it in college. And so I was flexible through that and kind of picked up other projects. We're talking about during downturns, technology just makes strides, right? So I picked up a couple of those types of projects. Thankfully, made it through, right? Well, so then the second year I thought, surely I'll go to the field this time. nope, my second year was a reservoir rotation, right? And I said, oh, this is strange, but let's just do this, see how it goes. Well, then it came to my third year, and they said, hey, you're going to move to Utah. And I said, all right, looks like I'm moving to Utah. Packed up the U-Haul, moved to Utah, and actually just moved back from Utah about a week and a half ago. It was some of the best months of my career. The amount you learn out there is unprecedented, truly is. But being flexible and going along with that, as opposed to saying, no, there's a structured rotation program. I signed up for this. This is what I signed up for. I don't want to do this anymore. It just allows you so many invaluable opportunities. Granted, that was because the companies were going through a merger. The rotation program is not like that now. So I wouldn't want that to dissuade anybody from wanting to come work for Ovintiv. But yeah, just I think flexibility is key.
I agree.
I'm just gonna say, stay humble. I feel very fortunate, lucky, making it through this downturn, last downturn. I saw many of friends who still are not back in the industry or will never come back. So, yeah, just stay humble. And then also when you're working in dynamics with different teams, don't be that person that always has to win, you know? Don't be that person that always has to be right. That goes a long way with when people get to make decisions on who they want to stay and don't stay. It's true. More so than you
I
might
don't know if
think.
they're hearing you. You may want to repeat that with emphasis.
So I will say, when you
and
work with
clarity.
people, yes, when you work with people, don't always go for the win. Don't always try to be the right person. Work with humility and work as a team. When your boss or your manager is making decisions on who to cut and who not to cut, they really do take that into account. And so don't be that pain or that thorn in their side that's always wants to do. You might think it's the right way. Well, they might think it's another way. You know, everyone has their own reasoning. There's multiple ways to do things in this industry. So don't always think your way is the right way. That's my.
That's a great point. I think we had a question from D. Wong. So the question was networking with operators and also on the service side too.
Yes.
How do you go about that?
Or I don't even know what an operator or service.
That's okay. I think that. All right. So y'all probably answer the Okay.
Still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out too right now.
Operators are people on the wells. Yeah. Contractors, service companies are the ones who work.
So if it's building yeah, that was good. So if it's building a home, the operator is KB Homes or something like that, and all the service companies are the people that put up the drywall, the plumbing, the electricity, the subcontractors, pretty much. And one of the best tools to do that is LinkedIn. Before the pandemic, I had my core group of friends, and service side, customers, whatever. But through the pandemic and being on LinkedIn and all that stuff, and I advise, if everyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. But it's one of those things. My network now has grown from LinkedIn, from reaching out and meeting strangers online, from
Aren't you a little worried about that?
you know what? Whatever. I've only had a couple bad experiences, but no, but I mean, seriously, I mean, the networks that the networks that are built now, my networks now, are some of the strongest and actually some kind of most beneficial too, and that's strictly from meet strangers online. That's my advice. Don't tell my daughter.
Yeah.
So I guess until other questions come up, I have a question for y'all. What is y'all's perception of the oil and gas industry today? What do you think?
It's competitive.
Oh, I didn't know that you were listening. It is
I
competitive.
think it's really stressed. I think we lost our last generation before they wanted to go, which is what you were saying. And I think there's barriers to entry for young people because companies are, afraid to hire.
Yeah.
Because they don't know exactly precisely what they're going to do. Some companies haven't finished their, we call it reorganization cycles, and so you might hear a big company only hiring a few people, and that sets your mind that there's not a place, but there's always a place. I thought at some point one of you was going to say all roads lead to Midland, which is kind of true. If you can't get a job in Midland, probably shouldn't be doing this. Nobody's going to agree with that.
No, that's true.
If you want a job, go to Midland.
Yeah.
And
Midland's got some good people too.
might have to sleep in your car because the rents are so high. But that's what I think we're at a crossroads. I think we're going to see a structural change. There's going to be a demand for more people because a lot of people have left. But how are those people going to enter? And can we continue to attract and retain the very best talent? That's the number one thing from my perspective.
Yeah, I know that answer.
So completely agree. We lost a lot of experience before they wanted to go in this last downturn, or you can take the last 2 or 3. There's a lot of reasons why they haven't all been brought back, but a lot of that has to do with the development of technology. We talked about well databases. We're no longer calling in a phone report once a day from the rig. We're watching live 1-second data, and there's so much more integration between the technical, engineering, design, oversight of all the things going on than there used to be. So that, to me, is the opportunity for you guys. You guys bring the skill set. Every year there's a new class that graduates that's more technical, more literate with all the software and programming than the one before. Just that's the way things are going. That's what you guys bring to the table as the gray hair exits that had all the hands-on experience, that had to write down well records and pull them out on paper and flip through them. You guys can do that stuff so much faster. That's part of the reason we're drilling wells faster. We're learning from the 100 other wells and not looking at 2 well files and trying to repeat what was done in a manual way. So that's where I think you leverage that coming into the industry, and there's a huge demand for it that wasn't always there because the tools weren't available.
You may want to warn them that all that data is not ready for them to jump in and just tap away and get answers out of it.
There's some massaging to be
You're
done.
have to do quite a bit of work.
Yeah, but it's all there, and being able to do it efficiently. That's what you bring to the table. That you're gonna run circles around me, pulling in baseline data from 30 wells and compiling that in Spotfire and looking at it every way you want to look at it. But that's it. That's the way things go.
Yeah, and something just to piggyback off of that and to kind of combine the 2 statements there is, as a young engineer, you're absolutely right. I took classes that some of my, seniors, managers, advisors didn't necessarily take, but at the same time, a model is only good as the data you feed it, right? Garbage in, garbage out. I'm sure you've heard that a ton from your professors, but in the real world, I think it's really, really true. And so when you're looking at that data, I think it does take that experience and that knowledge and that hands-on to realize what's good data, what's bad data, and what does the data actually mean, right? And to have a gut check of, is this accurate, right? Because all the formatting can be correct. You could have the correct titles, nice pretty line through a graph, but does it make sense, right? And that would be the one kind of word of caution when it comes to, big data, machine learning, MVR world, is that just make sure that you kind of do your due diligence on the data cleaning.
Going to your point about companies, operators, potentially, that might be a goal for a lot of people in this room to go work for an operator and drill some wells, complete some wells, whatever that is. But whether they're hiring now, try to widen your target. For example, again, it was last year or year before that, I'm using Dean Murphy again. Awesome, smart, great guy. There's just no jobs out there. And he actually landed at a software company, Combo. Sure, we all heard of that. And he is doing such a great job there. And the thing is, though, he's having more fun there. I had breakfast with this guy. He said he's having more fun there than he thinks he would have had doing his original route. So don't have your blinders on. This is what I want to do. I did this to work at Chevron, Ovintiv, or whatever that is. Allow yourself kind of the flexibility and the willingness to maybe kind of go on a different path that you didn't originally plan.
completely agree with that. 100%.
Thank you.
Being an operator is not all, you're not it's not the greatest in the world. There's both sides has its pluses and minuses. So don't think that one side is, all mighty and better than the other side. It's really, at the end of the day, you're learning a lot on the job. And some of these service companies have absolutely amazing educational programs like Schlumberger. You get some of the best engineers out of Schlumberger just because of all the opportunities they have to go to classes and continue that continued education. Where I work for a small to medium sized operating company. I'm just scrounging to find time to go learn something new over here or there. I'm learning it on the job sometimes. That's just the way it is. Because I don't have free time like some of these other guys do to run around and do whatever.
What are you leaving him for? What did he do?
Okay.
What did Willie do? But also, speaking of that point too, just because the job is there, let's say it's a Schlumberger or Halliburton or something like that, doesn't mean that's going to be the rest of your career. The oil field's a community. It's small, and I know a lot of people that started that didn't even have engineering degrees that are now drilling wells at operator side just because they spent that time and got that experience. Professor?
Dr. Alves?
Doctor?
Doctor?
I have a question.
You have a question as to why your name's up there?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's on my phone.
That's a good question. But I have another question. The international, you talk about international. I think it's, I'd like to know a little bit more about the opportunities and how do you think it's important? How do you feel this is going to be good for the career?
Oh. So,
How is different? How, better or worse than is here and there? How is it going to happen?
So my experience internationally, I've lived, again, Saudi, and getting my master's, I lived in France. But oil field was Saudi Arabia. But I also got the chance to travel everywhere when I first started out, my first 5 years in the industry. You realize that the U.S. is, there's a lot of convenience here. Everything's open 24 hours. You want something, I ordered something, a water filter today on Amazon. It was delivered at 6 p.m. today. I ordered that like at 1 before I came up here. So, I know, right? Technology. So for me, again, the world's getting smaller, and the oil field's only getting smaller than that. Just because, again, there are people leaving the industry, and there's a lot of crossovers. For me, the experience for working international, meeting people from so many different cultures, and being being uncomfortable in a lot of these places, just because I wasn't familiar with, I guess, whether it's the culture, whether it's the food, whether it's this, whether it's that. But just like your first job in the oil field, you dive in. And you find out you have more similarities than you have differences in reality. But I personally think, just like field experience, if you have that international experience as well, that's just as important. If it comes up in your career path or something like that, the opportunity to go abroad, to work in a different environment, that's only going to help you tremendously, in my opinion. If you stay geographically restricted, it's going to restrict your climb up or wherever pathway you want to go. And plus, you meet some of your greatest friends international too, because again, small knit community, whether it's expats or whether it's locals or whatever it is, to me is a great experience, and I highly advise everyone, if you do have that shot, take it. I mean, you're young enough. It's going to be a great experience, and it's going to fly by like that.
I mean, honestly, one of the exciting parts about international too, I mean, everything's kind of cyclical in the oil field, right? All of us happen to be probably, I'm not sure about Paloma and Escondido, but we're all pretty much U.S. land as of right now. But eventually it's going to turn back to where it's a lot more international, a lot more Alaska, a lot more Guyana. I know some guys work for Exxon doing Guyana stuff. It's like, if you're able to take the opportunity now and go work international, I feel like we haven't caught up with it yet, but eventually it'll switch back up to that point, because we're going to eventually run out of places to drill in the U.S. with how fast.
There'll be a lack of people.
Right, there's going to be a lack of international experience.
It'll be like it was 50 years ago. There'll be another cycle where there won't be enough nationals or whatever.
Yep, 100.
That market will open back up.
Big time. Yeah. They're not developing. They're not doing anything.
Right.
And that's another big vote if you're looking at, do I want to work for an operator or service company? If international is a big thing for you, go service.
Yeah.
100%.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Absolutely. Good jobs.
The Carson Watt, the one and only.
I think someone's using a pseudonym for me because I didn't pass that.
Will, do you have a question?
What question would it be?
How to get a job.
Be Carson
We're
Watt.
not throwing you off your game. That's all we've been talking about.
So we don't have to pressure you, Carson. We got another hand up behind you.
I didn't put your name. So you said that eventually we're gonna run out of places to drill in the US. When do you think that will be?
So
I
the,
don't think they meant it quite like.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that was on the extreme side, but I mean, eventually it's gonna either taper out or level off to where it's like, all right, the populations are still growing. We're gonna find more resources for oil. We're gonna have to start expanding that. And then those opportunities for offshore and those other places kind of opened up a little bit more.
I mean, you have unconventional basins everywhere. You have Algeria, you have Argentina, China didn't work out so well. Australia's developing. These are not high market, high volume personnel places, but places even like South Africa, you're gonna see a lot of development. There'll be some, but it matters when you are looking at it.
I think a lot of that is how much meat's on the bone for whatever size operator that is, right?
Exactly.
You know, size is a big deal for if you're an Exxon or you're a little Paloma like us.
Mm.
Exxon can't go do what we do. It just doesn't hit the bottom line enough for them. So it works great for us in private equity world.
So the answer is it's an economic answer. What are oil and gas, what are commodity prices going to be? How high is the demand going to be? Because if commodity prices twice where we are today, the number of potential well locations here in the U.S. expands exponentially, right? So you exploit your best assets, your best wells first. So as demand continues to increase, if supply doesn't stay with it, it just opens that up further, whether it's here in the U.S. or internationally where the resources are there, but they're not going to have the capabilities to develop them. So they're going to have to rely on us to come bring our technologies, bring our people, bring our understandings of what we've gotten very efficient at here over there to exploit it. So
It'll also be hard
decades.
for them to develop a economic scale, as you guys pointed out. You can't do that in Argentina. There's just not enough activity.
Yeah.
You go somewhere like Indonesia, you're never going to find a frac pump because of the
That's right. Yeah, bring in somewhere.
the Carson Watt.
I guess I did think of a question now.
What we're here for.
My question is, so we talk a lot about being like the petroleum industry kind of going more international and working more collaboratively international. With like current world conflicts going on right now, we hear a lot about like energy security. How does that play into working internationally, but also wanting to have energy security domestically?
Go ahead, boys.
Well, go ahead.
Political hat.
Someone.
I mean, you can look at where Europe is right now, right? They're in a bad situation because of the political aspect with Russia. You know, I mean, we luckily have the resources available to us here so that we aren't beholden to pick your country, right? So it's power. It's power to hold the upper hand whenever there's a conflict or avoid a conflict because they can't threaten us to the point where they can cut off our energy and everybody's going home tonight and doesn't know if they're going to have hot water or lights. You know, it's hard to even imagine that, but that's the reality of even in Europe, a very developed country. That's the situation that they've gotten themselves into. So I think it's a huge power play for the United States.
I don't even know how you answer that question. It's I mean, if you can figure out the price of oil, you figure out what's pulling on it all around the world because it is, you know, it's a worldwide commodity that everyone seeks and wants. Our companies here are going to follow whatever political stances they need to abide by the rules of policymakers. They're going to have their own lobbying departments. If you look overseas in Russia, or anywhere else. I mean, it's just drastically different. So, I mean, wars are fought over it, right? So for me to say one way it's going to go one way or another, it's like me asking me what the price of oil is going to be a year from
We
now.
have experience with this. When Iraq went offline, when Iran basically was sanctioned out of
Yeah.
existence, those caused price fluctuations, but the world made up for it. But now you have the world's third largest producer being more or less pigeonholed. The only persons they're going to sell to are China and India.
Correct.
And how long are they going to do that without external technology? That's a good question.
It's hard.
In other words, we could be in this for a long time.
Was that the answer kind of you're looking? I mean, what, do we answer the question?
For the most part, it was just kind of that aspect of the fact that, I guess since world conflicts are kind of so unpredictable, I guess just like the prices of oil and gas, I guess like since then we've heard a lot about just energy security, so I figured possibly the U.S., even though we're looking internationally, possibly bringing up domestic production rather than looking internationally.
Well, there's a lot behind that. I mean, trust me, there's a lot behind that. And that's kind of what we're facing right now as an industry. And y'all might be able to speak this more because y'all are operators. I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff. But right now in the industry, first off, you had a huge exodus of people leaving. Okay. I mean, people are talking about like, oh, there's 9,000 leases to drill. Go drill it. Or, oh, how come you just can't turn the faucet on and have more? You can't. It doesn't work that way. Number one, there's a lack of people. All right. Number two, there's huge lack of like a shortage, whether it's casing, whether it's personnel, whether it's sand. We're having issues actually source equipment and materials. And the third thing is, which is kind of what we're faced now, which is to me that might be the biggest challenge. It actually might leave oil and price, whether if demand stays the same where it's at, is the lack of capital investment coming in. It costs money to drill wells. It costs money to complete wells. A lot of money. To get sand, get people. I mean, we're competing with Buc-ee's right now when it comes to paying people. And I'm being serious right now. It's a huge thing on our radar right now. So for me, it's the question of bringing capital back in the market so we can actually pay wages. We can actually get casing. We can actually get materials for the rig to drill. And unfortunately, that's kind of, it's whether it's political pressure to the large financial institutions that aren't.
But be honest, they'll invest where they're going to make a profit.
I agree.
Ultimately, that's going to happen. And everybody needs to have the RBC Richardson Bar webpage on their hand. Right now, the gas price is $6.67. Do we think we would see natural gas at $6.67?
No.
I mean, we're giving it away.
Yeah.
There are companies that went into bankruptcy because they couldn't sell gas.
But I agree with you. I mean, I think obviously the people in the banks obviously once there's an opportunity to make a return, they're going to do it. They're obviously framing it up however they want to, but that's a huge constraint right now in our industry.
Yeah. I mean,
RBC Richardson Bar.
The notion that there are oil and gas companies out there right now withholding drilling wells. We're in the business to make money. With commodity prices where they are, we are completely going as quickly as we can right now to drill wells as long as they're economic and we're not bound by casing availability, sand availability, or borrowing base. Those are the three. So the notion that, we need to ramp this up, it's ramped. I mean, we're trying. We are fully ramped already. There are constraints with holding that. It's not just a matter of being conservative in not drilling a well if it's economic right now.
Give an estimate of where we are people-wise, resources-wise, compared to 4 years ago. 30% down?
So we hit the bottom of rig count August of 20 at 240.
No, what I'm saying right now, what's our net? We knew that the U.S. market was going to constrict, but we didn't know it was going to have to expand again.
Mm-hmm.
So when it constricted, we said, well, it would just be smaller. Now it's expanding again, and here we go again.
Yep.
All the shortages are going to run into cost overruns. They're going to run into not getting the people you want, and the system's going to be stressed again.
Absolutely.
I would argue that's what we're looking at, which is going to be a volatility scenario.
No
Of course,
doubt.
as Carson pointed out, our friends to the east, they pretty much guaranteed that, we're going to be busy for a while.
Yep. And we went there within a span of 6 months. I mean, that's the difficulty of all this, is how quickly things go both ways.
Yeah.
We laid down 30, 40 rigs a day in West Texas to, there's already no more rigs to be picked up that are competitive rigs to do what we do for the most part on land. So it happens that quickly, and we're severely constrained right now with resources, people,
Even
and
the rig
rigs.
providers said a month ago, whenever we had them here, that they simply don't have any more standard rigs at a standard that they can take out and put back in service. If you want to pay for it, to refurbish them, they'll gladly do that, but nobody wants it. They just want to dig it.
Yeah, I mean, especially because it's been kind of a downturn the last 5-6 years. So all those rigs that they did have been cannibalized over the years, and because everything got so cheap, everybody had to cut costs and get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. You cannibalize these rigs. You send them to Argentina, you send them to other countries, and then now when it comes time to pick up, nobody has anything.
Yeah, on top of that, you saw steel prices spike before the pickup in oil and gas. It really picked up. And so these guys are cannibalizing rigs, selling them steel. So they're cutting apart their old rigs, getting rid of them. They don't have personnel to. I mean, it's just
I mean,
All this spells opportunity for these guys.
I mean, for instance, when was the last time you heard a new rig getting built? I mean, I haven't
There's
I haven't heard of a new rig
Been a
getting
while.
built in years. And versus like
2015.
right.
Yes.
Been years.
some, probably would be just those high spec rigs from like Schlumberger and like Exxon's. The ones that are fully automated, they're test driving. Right?
Experimental stuff.
Yeah, experimental stuff.
So we have another buzz player, Joe Martini.
Yep. Hello.
Hey.
Or howdy.
Howdy.
So
Yeah,
my
there.
question is kind of about the politics of it. So Dr. B's touched on this, and you guys have touched on it too. But how we're at capacity or not. Like when you turn on the news, you have like on the right, people will say that the left doesn't want us to drill and isn't letting us drill. But then on the left, they're saying that the oil companies aren't drilling, even though they say they can. But do you think that if politics were flipped, like if the 2020 election went differently, or the 2016 election went differently, but COVID still happened, and if Russia still invaded Ukraine, would that actually change, depending on who is in power, that have actually changed to where we are today?
I think, I think a little bit.
I think it has impact. Yeah.
Yeah, has an influence. I mean, like the pipeline that got shut down, like stalled again last year, right? If that had continued to go that Trump and Reid gone doing, then that it might have not done everything, but it done a little bit. Like putting a hold on federal permits at the beginning of last year when he first got elected into office. Just little things like that, just restrictions versus the Trump administration that kind of opened it up more, which actually led to lower prices, right? Because it was more opened up. Obviously, it doesn't have any. You can't control the war in Ukraine with those guys, so that's a bigger swing of it. But it plays a part, as was everything. It's never one particular thing. It's kind of
We need to remind everybody that the shale boom occurred in the most antagonistic administration that we've had in X dozen years.
That's where I was
It's
kind
not
of
intended.
on the opposite of that. It's like I don't know if it really matters.
No, it's where the opportunity lies.
But the thing is, what we're seeing right now as an industry is kind of this rhetoric that it's fossil fuels are just yesterday's yucky, disgusting energy issues. Now we got all this clean stuff. So the rhetoric that's being shifted right there is just that's absolutely driving public perception. That's absolutely driving pressure for oil and gas
I want
companies.
to drive public perception. Turn the lights off.
You preaching to converted. I get it.
Turn the gas off. Turn the internet off. I mean, public, don't empty all the shelves at HEB.
Oh, I completely agree, and that's kind of been one of the things that I've been, on my platform. What I've been doing, I've been trying to promote these. It's not a this or that conversation. We're all energy, okay? It's more having these educational conversations with people that may not know about. I mean, I didn't know anything about the oil and gas industry beginning. I didn't know anything about how energy can be stored, transported, anything like that. So part of, I think, our goal, everyone in this room as well, is kind of to engage in these educational, respectful conversations with people that may not have all the correct information or maybe just have some misinformation. So that is a big challenge that we're doing right now, that we're faced with.
So do you think that public companies, especially like
like a lot of them focus a lot on share buybacks right now with additional profits. Do you think that they would do less of that if they felt it was a less antagonist environment? Because I feel like a lot of shareholders are afraid of another downturn, so they want the shareholder buyback to increase their share prices rather than increasing investment and hiring more.
So I think that has nothing to do politically. It's,
Yeah,
what,
I mean,
it's
that's
basically
probably-
what's going on in the industry the past 3 or 4 years, right? Shareholder returns are terrible. They were demanded. No, so you go into the, it's almost comical, right? You go into the bus cycle and shareholder returns are absolutely abysmal, and they're all pounding their, all the CEOs and executives getting huge payouts, which we won't discuss that, but it was what it was.
Well, they are being paid to go away. If that
Yeah,
helps.
yeah. Either way, right? People want to make a return on their investment, and so the companies start doing that as prices started coming back, right? Giving dividends and paying back debt, and now it's like it's all flip side. It's like you need to go put more rigs to work, get more production online, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what the shareholders truly wanted, say like a year ago, right? That's my take on it. Y'all got any more to add to that?
I just think in general, no. Would today be different with a different president? No, because it's commodities. It's a world commodity. However, what could be different is how things are taxed, tariffed, projects that have to go to a federal level. Those things cumulatively can add up to make the economics worse intentionally on oil and gas to balance out with whatever the preferred flavor of the month is competing. So would today be different? No. I mean, we would be where we are with oil and gas prices. But the concerning thing that comes with there is how long does it take to roll in new windfall taxes or whatever the next buzzword is going to be unfairly against only oil and gas? Why shouldn't everybody pay a windfall tax when they make more money? What's
do this in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And
So
it was eventually repealed. And that was a tight gas revolution. I sat in Dhahran in 2020 at the IPTC, and the Saudi oil minister said, the low price producer will always prevail. And I'm sitting there with my Louisiana public school education going, what do you mean? Oh, they can produce a lot cheaper than everybody else, so they're going to squeeze the hell out of the market. Why? I mean, they don't really care what the price is. They care what their market share is. They care about stability. They care about how much they can bring into their society. Our motivation is completely different.
We got a question from Nick Farley.
Howdy, y'all. Thanks for coming. I guess my question is for Keith. You mentioned that you work for big operators, small operators, working for a private equity-backed company. And I was just wondering if you could kind of compare your experience within the two, or I guess, big and small operators.
yeah, I mean, it's. I'll preface with it's going to depend on there's stereotypes on everything. So big operator, small operator, they're not all the same. But in general, you can kind of draw a line down the middle and go, there's a lot of structure and process, support, knowledge, expertise kept in-house. Exxon's going to have an entire technical team to analyze specific projects. You get over to the kind of mid-level and you may have a couple of senior people around you. Then you get into the smaller operators that they're focused on efficiencies, do it effectively and safely, but you're going to be on your own. You're going to have to figure it out. So they both have their different means of learning point A to point B. One is a more structured technical mentorship type. The smaller one is we're going to send you out there and you're just going to jump in with the guys and figure it out. And pros and cons to both. It's hard to get the right mix, I think, of having a structured program to where you develop well-rounded engineers versus throwing people in a pot and letting them cook. You learn a hell of a lot in a year, but it's stressful. There's a lot of things that you probably did wrong and you won't know until later from a technical aspect, but you sink or swim. So I think it depends on your personality, your skill set, your career goals as to which way should I go here, right? I mean, are you more apt to be, I want to get into this structured program because that's what I like, or You want to just go run and get tossed the ball and see how far you can get with it and stub your toe a few times, but have thick skin and be able to make it through all that and succeed on the other end. So a lot of long nights and stressful times over on the other side there. So, yeah.
All right. Mr. Tyrone Gay. Someone buzz in.
Might be Miss Buzz, so I'll clear it.
Miss Buzz?
For like, in your opinion, like for an entrepreneur, if they wanted to own you on a service company or something like that, would it be better to get in like with an operator or get in at a lower level, or not lower level, but get into a service, role? Or I mean, what do you think the best opportunity that would be, for somebody that maybe want to own their own business or something like that?
Start at the bottom.
The service side?
Service. Bingo. Start at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean that's really just getting out there, meeting the people, touching the equipment, kind of finding out what equipment's needed. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, Conroe 2 years ago they had like 55 different directional companies. I mean, Midland probably has 3 times that. Okay, it's really just trying to find kind of what service that. I guess I don't have a service company with equipment or anything like that, but I would say just kind of that's really just kind of getting out there and find out what's going on, just find out what service line or product that you want. I know one of my friends, he started off with a $20,000, saved up $20,000 working offshore, first generation oil field, bought a pulsation dampener. Next thing you know, he's grown that business to where they're killing it. Several different lines. They have all the Chesapeake. They have all this company. They have all this company. So it's really just kind of starting somewhere, offering good service, being honest, being reliable. I don't know what service line that is. Wish I did.
I mean, I think it's finding inspiration in something, no matter what you do. Like, for instance, a friend of ours, Matt Bernard, his story always stands out really well for me.
That's the story.
He drove water trucks when he first started out. He's a LSU fan. I think he's a UL grad. But he drove water trucks, and he did that for a few years. He's like, wow, it seems pretty easy. I could probably do this better than the guys running this company. So he gets some money together, buys a couple of these trucks, and then he starts building up his company that way because he saw an opportunity. He got his foot in the door doing something, whether it's driving water trucks, whether it's doing NWD tools or working on rigs. Like, I see an opportunity with maybe so-and-so company, because I have these ideas all the time. I'll be out there and be like, I feel like we could probably do something better than that. And it's just going out there and doing it, and then seeing and having that creative mind. It doesn't have to mean where you start. It's where you take that inspiration once you're doing it, in my opinion.
Great point. And also, if that's something that you want to talk about, get my card after, because I mean, there's a bunch of people that we know, a bunch of friends that we know that kind of they worked at bigger service companies, they worked at operators, and they kind of spun off and started doing their own thing. So I know a couple people that kind of did that. So yeah, we can chat.
On the flip side of that, I'm going to throw in another caveat.
Flip it.
Over the next 10 years, how many of these service companies are owned by senior people who probably want to move on with life? So there's probably a lot of people looking to get out of those companies, opportunities for people to take over already existing line service companies that are out there. Once you get a little experience and understand what you like, what you want to do, I mean, it's probably endless opportunity there, over the next 10 years or so. There's going to be tons of people trying to get out of the smaller service company sector, especially with this uptick in pricing.
That's the thing. You probably do a lot these days, a little bit of experience too. I mean, when it comes to something like that, yeah, you can do a lot with a little bit of experience. It's just attitude, motivation, inspiration, all the fun stuff. So,
I mean, yours is kind of like that. Your story's like that, right? I mean, you were inspired when you were
oh,
doing
Tyler,
your
go
job,
on.
right? But right? I mean, like, started you to create your own company and do your own.
Yeah. So, that's kind of, I mean, my thing. I was on the service side for so long, and I just kind of realized that I got a good knack of putting people that need to be together at a table, put in the same room. Oh, you got this issue going on over there. You got to talk to this guy over here, whatever that looks like. Or you got to talk to this girl over here, whatever. It's getting the right people in the right room. And that's kind of the, I don't know. I didn't have a goal. I didn't have a plan. It was more of a progress. It was more of a process, not a progress, more of a process. That's kind of how I started this thing. And it's only been around 2 quarters, but in 2 quarters, we brought, we've had 28 different events. We brought over 217 different operators into the table, over 80 different companies. And that's something that just doesn't happen these days because operators aren't going out to industry events that often because when they sniff you have a rig coming up, they'll get on you like vultures. So that's the truth. So it's kind of one of those things where I just kind of people business. I mean, we are a people business. So.
Can I ask a question? 1 minute, whatever, 10 seconds apiece. What's the shittiest job you ever had?
In the oil field?
Period.
Period? Oh, shit.
Next.
I was a garbage man.
Probably not shitty enough.
Next.
Worked for a government agency in California.
Next.
Ooh, working floors in West Texas when it was 8 degrees outside and it was raining with no wind walls, and rethinking, why not take that operator job when I got it? But say I wanted to work on rigs at the time. Yeah, that was definitely it. I was wearing a black garbage bag, because I didn't have a raincoat, and so I put a hole in a garbage bag and through the arms, like a
From north of Ovintiv.
yeah. We're not used to anything.
It's LSU engineered right there.
Maintenance turnaround at a cyanide unit at petrochemical refinery. Not fun.
Next.
It's probably a barge rig, cold Louisiana, south on the water. We just out there for days, sleeping with bunks full of people. It's tight space.
Yeah.
Not that enjoyable.
So what's your advice? These guys got to do that in order to be successful.
You know,
Didn't hurt you.
No, I mean, I don't think you have to go be a garbage man, or I don't think you have to go work at a cyanide. But at the same time, there is a certain level of work ethic and sacrificing kind of the daily conveniences and actually, rolling your sleeves up and getting dirty, that it does kind of, stick with you throughout your career and all that stuff. So I do think taking the dirty jobs, taking the jobs that kind of no one really wants and all that stuff, if anything, it's going to only bring character. And one thing this industry loves is people with character.
So, counter question, the best job you ever had?
The best job I ever had. It's been the one working with the best team of people around me. Had a couple of them. It's hard to differentiate, but when you get a group of people really working together that share the same work ethic, goals, and really work well together, I don't really care what we're doing there. If we've got the right people and the right team, the job is irrelevant. But just to back up one, it's embrace the suck. Whatever it is, embrace the suck. It's going to get worse and worse as you look back on it. You take away more from the bad times than the good times. So the worse it is, the more you're going to learn in a short amount of time. And it's not going to feel good in the moment, but you'll realize later, man, when things were going really well and really easy and the right people, I didn't learn as much. I learned a lot more on those really terrible nights or weeks or whatever it was. So, yeah.
So that is 100% true. Some of my best stories, and I still tell this day, worked on the rigs 8 years ago, are from those sucky times, sharing a room with 4 other guys about the size of like these 2 tables together. And those are my best stories versus like my favorite thing I've ever done is my current job, being a drilling engineer at this company, working with great people, Willie, meeting people like JP, and all these guys at this table. I love this job, but at the same time, it's like I don't have as many probably hilarious stories of sitting in the office and us talking about Bitcoin and all those other things versus sharing a shack with a guy named Fish.
With one tooth.
Yeah, well, with a cold tooth who didn't take baths, and we had to have interventions with him about it. Versus like, just sitting talking to Willie about the LSU A&M game. I mean, but like I said, at the same time, it's all about the people you work with, and that's why I love my job now. I could be drilling engineer, drilling tech, completions engineer, whatever, but I've been blessed to work around very talented, very smart people, very driven people, and that's what gets me to wake up every day, is come to work and work with people like this. And I encourage you to try to find those groups, and if you don't, look until you do.
I have a funny comment there. I have one sticker on my hard hat, and it says "Embrace the suck," because things aren't rosy, right? Things aren't always going to be good. And I have to say, my favorite job was actually the group of people I worked with when I went through the pandemic. Right? It's kind of odd. We had to lay down completion crews. A lot of people lost their jobs. There was, as I said earlier, reorganization going on. But making it through those times with those people was bar none my favorite. And now, since Tyler's sitting here, the OVV approved answer is every single job I have is the best job I've had up to this point. So
I would say kind of what I'm doing now. I've never had a business before. Never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I even hate saying that. I hate saying that. But I would say now, the ability to kind of not only sit down across the table and talk to people and people from all different levels in our industry, all different backgrounds, and kind of hear their story. It's very kind of it's a cool experience. You get to hear a lot. The second thing is, it's like I'm betting on myself right now. I'm betting on the belief that networks and relationships matter. And plus, I mean, I get paid to kind of bring people together, sit around, have a nice meal, and kind of watch the connections happen, whether it's on the service side operators. You might get two operators, same acreage, like, oh, we got to do, let's talk after this. We got to do that. So it's really kind of, right now, this is my favorite job. It's most stressful, but it's probably my most favorite one just because I tell my daughter I get to make friends for a living. And that's kind of what I get to do.
What's your worst job?
My worst job, garbage man.
Oh, garbage man. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wrote that.
Miserable during the summers. Connecticut, beach town, disgusting.
Best job? There's two of them probably, but one was when I was at Alta Mesa. We had 12 rigs running. I started that program with one and was able to build it up to 12 with a small team of 4 people. And we were burning wells down about 7 to 8 days each. It was high intensity. I learned the most from my manager at that time than I ever had before. And then now, the job I have now is great because I'm able to implement a lot of the things I learned that I wasn't able to, have say for when I first came over to Paloma. I worked under someone else, but now I'm full say and I'm able to implement a lot of that stuff. And we're kicking ass. It's awesome.
Does anybody notice a correlation? Every one of you talked about your best job being the people you work with, and everybody's talked about the worst job being the shit that you do. If we had another half hour, I'd love to hear about your best boss, worst boss stories.
But I mean, talk about kind of what y'all are saying. I mean, I've known people that have switched jobs based on their paycheck, and they're not working with people that they want to work with, and it's just, I mean, and they leave that group. But they're not happy. They're not fulfilled. They're not satisfied because they're working with a group that they can't stand or they can't stand them. Oh yeah, yeah. So it's always, I agree with kind of the theme that you brought up and kind of everything here. If you can, when you ever get to that point, work with people that you want to work with, even if it's less, because that's going to make day and night difference.
With the caveat, you may not always like them while you're working with them.
Well, you have to do that to find out.
Exactly.
So, does anyone else have any questions, comments, feedback, or anything like that?
Dr. Alves, unfortunately, doesn't speak English very well, so I'm going to translate for him. He is absolutely fascinated by the metric system. And since most of you are drillers, I'd like for you to inform him where you can get some metric drill pipe and some metric drilling tools and some metric drilling protocols. Anybody want to help him with that?
Yeah. Put you in contact with our Canadian operators.
I'd like to add something. Is when you say metric, I say SI.
Sorry, SI. My
yeah, okay, not because we understand something, but SI unit. But anyway, SI units is no, I think it's something that I'd like to know your opinion. Is something.
I apologize.
I brought it back. Yeah. Right.
I opened this shit box.
Don't look at me.
I think we should have switched to
for this answer.
We should have switched to it a long time ago, but that starts in first grade or, right? So it's so much more logical and easier to follow. Is that your question? Or you? Oh, yeah.
No, that's the answer.
Well, I mean, at least there's a basis. I like scientific basis. So, yeah, I mean, the world would be a much simpler place if we could decide on a unit system that was more exact.
Tyler commented on earlier, we can put you in contact with our Canadian counterparts. They'd be more than happy to talk to you about that.
I was reading a presentation from them today talking about the lateral they drilled in meters. years, and I was having to do conversion.
No, we talked to him about threads. I want to hear metric threading. 33.3972 millimeter, something.
Yeah, I'll bring him next time instead of Willie.
Yeah. Much more interesting.
Well, I think this is kind of wrapping up. Is this kind of wrapping up right now?
Yeah, I think that's.
Well, I want to thank, first off, I want to thank everyone up here, Keith, Tyler, Willie, Ross. Thank y'all for making the trip up here. I want to thank everyone out there for listening, whether it's for the free food or whether it's for kind of hearing people shoot the bull. Nathan, thank you for inviting us and kind of putting this together, kind of running those traps. I appreciate that. But before we go, you don't have to do this. I'd like to get a picture of everyone. Does that work with everyone? And then y'all can bounce out. I don't care. We good?
Yeah.
And then one other thing, if y'all have any questions that you don't want to ask in front of the big group, because I know it can be intimidating, feel free to come up to us, talk to us. If you just want to chat, we'll hang out a little bit.
Yeah, the best way to get connected with us is go to that flyer, the Pumped Up for the Future flyer. Find our names on LinkedIn and just connect with us and shoot us a, hey, saw you Tuesday, whatever. It was horrible, whatever. I don't care, but connect with us. Start getting out there. So, absolutely, thank you all.
Everybody else starts back.
Hey.
So it's like, wait, no.
Guys, you got presents. Mr. Nelson.
Oh, thanks, sir.
Where do you want us? Hey, for the photos?
I'm gonna have to get your mailing address.